While we wait to receive another batch of over 60,000 vaccine jabs here in South Africa, many developing countries are struggling to keep up due to a shortage of shots. These countries still find themselves in the early stages of the vaccination rollouts. Senior Research Officer from the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Cape Town, Dr. Benjamin Kagina, joins us now to discuss the challenges faced by different countries on the continent and how they're faring overall. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your time. So we in South Africa are very worried about what we think of as a very slow pace of vaccinations compared to Europe. But comparative to the rest of the continent, we're not doing too badly. Should we be comparing ourselves to Europe and to the Western world at all, given that we face so many challenges with regards to vaccine procurement?
Thanks, Anli, and good evening to your viewers. Certainly, we should be concerned about vaccinating everybody so that we can contain the pandemic. I think comparison is a bit hard to make because each country has its own specific challenges and also specific strength. We mustn't forget about that. But if we look at South Africa in comparison to other African countries, I would say that we're in the middle because the country like, for example, Morocco has done over 6 million vaccinations. And then there's a country like Egypt, which has only done about 1,600 vaccinations. Then there are many other countries, about 20-something, that have not started the rollout of vaccines. So I think each country moves at its own pace. But I think it is critical that all African countries speed up the rollout of these life-saving vaccines, that we know they are safe and they are effective.
I'm glad you addressed Morocco and Egypt specifically, because that discrepancy caught me completely off guard. I mean, over 6 million vaccinations administered in Morocco, and as you said, just over 1,300, I believe, vaccines administered in Egypt. What accounts for these startling discrepancies?
I think there are many factors, but among them is the speed at which the countries got prepared to roll out these vaccines, as well as the speed at which the countries were able to engage either bilaterally with the manufacturers or with other sources of getting vaccines. So what we know, there are 4 main strategies that most African countries are utilizing to access the vaccines. The first one is the COVAX facility, which is the big one. Most countries are using that strategy to access the vaccines. And a country like Morocco, for example, most of the vaccines that it has acquired is actually through bilateral agreement, which means the government was proactive to agree with manufacturers and pay for those vaccines to be able to receive them. And then there's also the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, which procured 270 million vaccine doses to distribute to African countries. And then there are some countries receiving the vaccines through donations from high-income countries as well as from manufacturers.
I also want to talk about Rwanda specifically, because they're doing surprisingly well at over 300,000 vaccines administered. Interestingly, it's also the only country that's already administered Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. What are they doing right that we did not manage to get right?
Yeah, that's a good question. And actually, even just outside COVID-19 vaccine introduction, Rwanda's immunization program is one of the strongest in the continent. So I think Rwanda was very proactive, and largely it's a country that is very pro-vaccine, and I think that has to be credited to the government of Rwanda. So to receive these vaccines from the COVAX facility, countries need to show that they are ready to actually receive and distribute those vaccines to their populations. And I think Rwanda was quite far ahead to actually show that they met the criteria for being ready to receive and distribute the vaccines way ahead of other African countries.
We know that procurement is a big problem. It's a challenge that most countries on the continent are having to grapple with. But aside from procurement, what are the other challenges that could be slowing down vaccine rollout?
Yeah, so you will perhaps have noted from South Africa, the first group that we're going to vaccinate are healthcare workers for reasons that we all know. They are at high risk group. And this population is easy to access because we can vaccinate them at their workplace, or we can use specific facilities that have been set up. But as the rollout progresses, then we're going to start expanding to larger population. And as you know, most of our immunization program is very much structured in delivering vaccines to children and not adults. And as you know, the COVID-19 vaccines will be given to adults. So there will be a lot of planning in terms of logistics and operations to deliver vaccines to adults. This is a new task for almost every government in Africa. And the challenges comes with planning, logistics, and also additional resources needed. For example, if we were to use Pfizer vaccines, for example, the one that has been recently given regulatory approval in South Africa, it means that the storage requirement are ultra low temperatures, which is something that we're not really used to. We need to invest in that. So those are some of the challenges of putting in additional resources to make sure that the delivery, storage and delivery of the vaccine is optimal.
So bottom line is, across Africa, all of the countries need to speed up their rollout in order to get to that herd immunity quicker. Thank you very much for speaking to us. That was Senior Research Officer from the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Cape Town, Dr. Benjamin Kagina.